And hello, everyone. Welcome to the WARPburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's episode 59 on an emergency podcast with me, your host, Thomas, aka MrWartburg. Alongside me, as always, in an emergency fashion today, is Patrick, aka Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations on a spur of the moment podcast, folks.
Very spur of the moment. Like we share Discord. Obviously, we use my personal one for our show prep and stuff. We have a private channel in there for link sharing and such. And we've been watching The Last of Us. Episode 3, we're both like live updating, like, oh my God, this is an amazing episode of television. And I was like, I need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I, the plan for me was to stream in some fashion today. I ended up doing a wood burning while watching some football and some basketball analysis for college basketball, watching a couple different podcasts. And I was like, oh, I missed my window to stream. But holy shit, this episode was so good. I need to come to a short stream right now because we're live over at twitch.tv/MrWartburg. We got Jaren in chat. We got a few others bouncing around as well. If you want to head over there, go to twitch.tv/MrWartburg. If you're on YouTube, the link is down below. It's the same handle as the one under me. It's MR Wartburg, like the college. So, Fusion. We did our pilot episode, the premiere episode for The Last of Us, episode 58, with Nick Schwartz, which was a great episode. One of the, I think, the
Yep.
best we've done in a while. And I wasn't going to do weekly episodes because we generally, other than when it's a specific show, I like to do every other week. I think it helps. We do different things. Like you go to different movies than I do. We play different games. It gives us a wider time to find different things to talk about. But man, I needed to talk about this episode. So do you like for me, I'm trying to think of a better episode of TV I've watched in a long time. Like there's maybe one or two episodes of The Boys that the entire time I'm just like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever watched. That was maybe one of the most effective episodes of TV I've ever seen because it only had 4 people in it.
Okay.
Maybe 5 if you count Tess. That was utterly incredible. That's my very brief takeaway on episode 3. Long time for The Last of
Okay.
Us on HBO.
Okay.
So, what were your point blank takeaways?
Okay. One, there's one show that had an episode that just became like the definitive episode of the show, and Breaking Bad is my favorite show ever. Still is. Ozymandias is considered the greatest Breaking Bad episode, right? I'm not
Mhm.
going to go into the spoilers of it. Rain Johnson directed that episode. A lot of people forget that. That's the episode he directed. I think a couple of them, but that's definitively that's the greatest Breaking Bad episode. Everything comes to head in that episode in season 5. This butts up against that for different reasons because that has so much of the drama, whereas this, it's like you get this beautiful painting, that's really, and I wasn't, when you and I talked about Nick Offerman's episode, whatever it's going to be, whatever his role is going to be going forward, you had said, my feeling is his episode, when he debuts, it's going to be a flashback. I had no idea, like 3/4 of it's going to be a flashback, like maybe just bits and pieces. No, like, yeah, this is just, oh man, and Nick Offerman and Maury Bartlett were incredible in this episode. And I don't know, I can ask you this, and then I'll throw it back to you. But has there ever been, when it comes to Emmy awards, like supporting actors and actresses get it for just one episode appearances? Does that they
I
have
don't
to be?
know.
They have to be.
I
Is it?
mean,
There's not an award for that.
would they qualify? That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Would they qualify? Because honestly, you could hand it to either man in this scenario because Bartlett and Offerman were just fucking incredible in this episode.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a dang good
yeah,
question. I don't know if they qualify.
I mean, it's something to really think about, and maybe we do the research and we talk about it next episode, like kind of revisit it. But I mean, I just was like, you like these guys, they're a part of the cast, and it's here's a little bit of a spoiler. Sorry, they're in one episode. I mean, like,
Yeah.
but like the significance of their role in defining where we're going with this show, really, like they created episode 1 sets the table of what we're doing. Episode 2 brings in the drama. Like finally, you get the monsters, you get the big bad monsters of the show, right? Episode 3 is we're laying the groundwork of what happened with people during the last 20 years. But instead of it talking about everybody around us, we're taking two individuals and telling you how it happens, both start and end. And it's just, yeah, man, like handing it back to you, like if it's possible for them both for either one to be nominated for an Emmy for this episode, I'm all for it because this is just like, holy crap! Like Nick Offerman, Parks and Rec, hilarious. He's done things over the years like We're the Millers. He's done other shows where he's been great, and he's got such a great. But like this was a different level because I saw so many layers of his emotions in this episode: the fear, the anger, the excitement, and calm versus rage. All like he went through it in so many different levels in this episode, and it's just I man, like seriously, like this just shows he can do drama. Like he can really do drama. So put him in a show where he's the lead
Well, but
drama.
wasn't he a main character in Devs? I didn't watch it,
Um,
but I think
I
he
didn't
was. Was
watch
he
it.
not? Was he not the the tycoon guy, like the guy
I
behind
think
the
you're right.
company?
I think you're right. I think you're right. I didn't watch Devs either, so I can't speak too much on
Yeah, I
Devs.
know he was in it because he had long hair. I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But so chat also let us know what you thought of The Last of Us, specifically episode 3 or the whole show so far. Like Chris, I think we got a pathos floating around too.
yep.
Um, so yeah, that's a really good question. I didn't think about winning awards for one episode appearances. I certainly hope that's not a disqualification.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very early in the year. It's only January, so like, who knows what else is coming? Like Succession's right around the corner, things like that. Obviously, we're getting more Ted Lasso, and we're gonna have more great performances down the road. But I mean, those two, they're leading the pack right now.
Well, and obviously, I'm going off of the assumption that we don't get another flashback with those two gentlemen, which we might.
It's true, we might. They haven't said they won't.
Yeah.
So yeah, because obviously we saw more of Tess this week. So spoilers,
Yep.
Tess is dead
Yep.
from episode 2. And again, full spoilers for everything up through the end of episode 3 right now. So
Your thoughts. Your
do we want
thoughts
to
on
backtrack to episode 2 since we didn't do a podcast about that quick?
Yeah, we could talk on it real quick. Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is more of a dovetail conversation of a question I asked Nick in the episode 58 we did about what do we think they're going to change? I was referencing more the end because I'm wondering because they're obviously they know season 2 is coming, right? Like that's baked into the story. There's no way they
Sure.
weren't told by HBO plan for more,
Yeah.
right? Whereas like Naughty Dog, it wasn't a given that they were going to do 2 when they made 1, right?
Yeah.
Because there was a decent gap of time in between there. So I'm wondering what will change because obviously when you adapt things, character relationships, perspectives, they're going to change based on performance, timing, storytelling, narrative needs, right? A whole host of reasons things might change, and we've already seen it. Ellie's a way different version of the character. Tess, her death is significantly different than how it happens in the games because the narrative construct of how she died is significantly different because it works in the show way more than it does in the games because I think we mentioned that like the level of violence is going to be different because it's live action versus a game.
Yep.
And that means you have to tone the violence down unless you're going for that kind of like gore vibe, which they're not really. They're going for that just more, hey, the real world's scary as fuck, and this is what would happen if these things existed kind of vibe. They're not, going, kills all the time and blood on the screen and that kind of vibe. So you need to tone down the visceralness of it. And that means you need to change your focus away from like human soldiers and stuff as much.
Sure.
Which then meant Tess's death is going to be different because they weren't fighting the military, they were fighting clickers. And they were fighting infected. So that is how her. I don't think. Was she infected in the game? I think she might. I don't remember. Either way, she sacrifices herself. But it's to stop a military, pursuit and versus the infected. And so that's already changed. In the game, Bill's alive. Well, we know Frank had died. Like, that didn't change. But Bill didn't go with him.
No.
That changed. And it was narratively the better decision to change it to do that. I don't know if you watched do you watch the stuff after where they talk about the episode? Not everybody does.
I didn't watch this one. I didn't watch this one, but feel free to just pour it out there
So I
because I
believe it
just
was
haven't had.
Craig Mazin that was talking about how when you're
Yeah,
making adaptation, you always have the question of what to do one for one and what to change. And he
yep.
was saying the key question there is which is narratively better. Sometimes the game
Mhm.
will have done it better, or the source material. Sometimes the way you would do it is better.
Sure,
And he did, and that's where they decided to change what happens with Bill, especially because they're not probably coming back in present day to him ever again.
sure.
So that opens you up to that possibility of, well, what if they went together? And that was a very, very narratively satisfying conclusion to his character, to his arc, their arc together as a couple,
Yes.
and honestly, it was just really beautiful. Like I was tearing up that entire like as soon as you realize what Frank wants,
Yeah.
like yep, man, it was so close to Tear City over here for me. Like damn, that was not. It was a sad watch, but not a you know what I mean, like not a hard watch. You know, like it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Whether that be from like that switch of Frank getting shot to then not Bill being shot to then Frank in the wheelchair 10 years later. Like, damn,
It was a gut punch,
that was a
right?
fucking
Yeah.
gut punch.
Because at first, when they fade into the patio or the front porch, you thought it was Bill on the wheelchair, and then you look and you're like, "No, that's Frank." So that obviously Bill had to survive because then he calls out to
And
Bill
then
like,
you
"Hey,
had that second
Bill."
realization of, oh shit, like
Yeah. You're
he's
like,
got
"Oh
something that
no."
can't be cured and can't be
Yep.
treated. And as
Yep.
someone who has a serious medical condition that say an apocalypse breaks out, you know, after I have my surgery or whatever, I know I'd only have like 3 or 4 years where I'd be functional, and that's
Well,
tops.
hold on, man. Like you have to. I'm in the same boat as you because I no longer have a thyroid.
That too. Yeah, I forgot
So
about that.
I don't have a thyroid, so if I don't take thyroid medication every day, eventually I'm going to fall into a coma and then die because I won't have any thyroid hormone regulating the other hormones in my body. So for me, I'm either going to be running around the apocalypse chewing on pigs' throats to survive, or like, like I'm going to have to be in some quarantine zone that can synthesize thyroid hormone. Like that's just like for me, like yeah, I can go out there like just I might as well put it fucking out there, Warburg. If there's an apocalypse, the first thing I'm doing is breaking into a fucking pharmacy to get as much thyroid pills as I can to supply to
Heck yeah.
last me as long as I can, and then that's it. But it makes you think about that kind of stuff because you're watching this scenario, and I'm just gonna take it. My assumption is that Frank had ALS just based off of like the body
Yeah, he
either
mentioned there
ALS
was no
or
cure anyway.
yeah, ALS or MS, one of those two, neuro or like a neuro disease, and so yeah, I just was like, I felt that gut punch because it's like that's what I was thinking as we were moving on, as things kept getting older. I'm like, you know, obviously the tragic part about surviving this apocalypse is you weather the storm of like, the raiders out there, the evil people, the monsters that are out there, and then you get something that just you can't fight because society's not built structured. We don't have a societal structure anymore with healthcare to help out. Even as crappy as the healthcare system is in this country, we can make comments about that, but the reality is that, you know, we could still have the ability to go to a facility to get some type of help, right? You don't have that anymore. So if you get, people that suffer from migraines currently, like they can only do so much, and then eventually they're gonna run out of pills, right? It's just I think about that kind of stuff too, man. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like just the fact that obviously they spent 20 years together. It just man, or 17 years if you talk
Yeah,
about the first
17,
movie.
yeah, timing wise. Or
He's
maybe
by himself.
16.
Yeah,
One of the
the
two.
man, just incredible story, and yeah, I really felt like this was the way to go because like you said, this was Bill's story, and he says that to him when he tells him, "I I've lived my life. This is my life, and I don't need to get older. This isn't suicide. This is me saying, okay, it's time." And he found his reason for life, and then that letter he left to Joel. God, man, like just like great, just great writing for this episode. Incredible writing. I
Mhm.
I really can't say. I can't speak enough about what Craig Mazin and his team did for this episode. And if I remember correctly, the writer was Peter. Hoare or Hoare. It's looks like it's spelled Hoare, but Hoare. He actually wrote for Daredevil, Netflix's Daredevil, and a couple other shows. So yeah, he knows drama, man. So this was a well written show. I will say that.
Yeah. I think it narratively it makes a lot of sense to after your first two episodes really set the tone. They give you that kind of action, like the tension scene, like with the clicker and everything, like it really
Yeah,
was going
yeah,
at a solid pace there and really keeping the heart rate up, slowing it
yeah,
back down, kind of just like reset. Plus, also narratively further the relationship with Joel and Ellie.
yep,
Like you can see that the cracks in his wall starting to form there, and she's starting to be, more of a let's say normal kid as opposed to someone who's entirely standoffish, right? As she was in the premiere and most of the second episode. So I thought it was an extremely effective way to do that because they're the narrative bookends,
yep,
where they're at the
yep.
beginning, where he's barely speaking to her, and then at the end, he's teaching her how a seatbelt works, because like in the beginning, like she's like talking about Mortal Kombat, and he's just like, I don't want anything to do with this girl, you
Yeah,
know, and then now she's traveling with him. They've got the truck, which doesn't look like it's going to last very long based on the previews, which that's not exactly shocking, given what happens in the game. But man, what a really good episode of TV! And I think I really enjoyed. Like we were talking in our pre-show, I really enjoyed their use of music,
yep.
which doesn't necessarily need to be restricted to pre 2003 music because if something's super effective, you can always use it. Like people are going to nitpick on YouTube podcasts, wink, wink, like us. But it's as if it narratively works in the show, use the music. But man, some of the stuff they were using, like the ending for episode one, the bits and pieces they sprinkled, like they had a few different classic tracks over some montage kind of scenes. Obviously, we get the piano version and then the tape actual like studio version of a long, long time by what was Loretta
Linda Ronstadt.
Linda. Yeah.
Linda Ronstadt.
So, and that's of course where the title of the episode comes from. Long, long time. I thought how they've been weaving that in works really, really well, especially with them playing it, and then that's how their relationship starts,
Yeah,
and then it's how the episode ends. I thought that was again just really well done. Can't sing the praises of this episode enough. It was fantastic.
yeah, man. It's great because it's an episode where the two leads of the show don't even get a chance to see them. Like I know. He met. They got to meet in a flashback, but I'm talking about like at that current, in our current like timeline, like all four never really got a chance to interact.
Which
And
would I think that means the radio turning on at the end of episode one
uh huh.
must have been them not being alive anymore, which is why the playlist
Yes,
kicked over.
that's what he said. He said that when they were downstairs, she looked and she goes, "80s music." He goes, "Yeah, it obviously hadn't been
And
messed
that
with in a
meant
while."
danger. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously it hadn't been messed with in a while because it rotated. So yeah, that's what happened.
Because I think there would have only been like less than a month. Because
About yeah,
but he wrote the letter in
August.
August. And
Yep.
I think it's like 20 years dead on later. So like it's
Yes,
late
September.
September, early
Yep.
October.
Yep.
And based on the fact they were sleeping outside in Boston, I'm guessing it's not too far into October. That gets chilly.
Yep.
So, any other thoughts on episodes 2 and 3? Any other thing that's like wonder where they're going next?
I obviously we're going to see Gabriel Luna very soon. Maybe
I think
next
that's
episode.
episode 5 on.
Okay. Okay.
I think
So
we
you think we get to Wyoming? I don't think we get to Wyoming until
no no
later
no wait. I'm talking we might see him like
in
see his
flashback
town
form.
or
Oh,
the
okay.
flashback of him how he left.
Okay.
Because I think they narratively need to get to the point where Joel's opening up about him before they
Yeah.
meet.
Yeah.
So she kind of gets to know who Tommy is before they
Well,
meet.
yeah, and he, with the ground rules, he says don't ever bring up Tess again. But then she can ask about Tommy, because she's like, you said don't bring up Tess, don't bring up Tess.
Yeah.
I can ask
Yeah,
about
like the
Tommy. What
story of
happened?
how because I know Anna Torb's in a couple more episodes, based
Yep.
on IMDb at least. So flashbacks of them working together before he leaves. flashbacks with them working with Marlene. Something along those lines, like what breaks that relationship apart? Why does he leave and go to Wyoming? Why does he leave
Yeah.
the Fireflies? That kind of thing is certainly on the table. I asked this to Nick when we were talking about what else might change. Um, does Marlene still die at the end?
Uh, well,
Are
you
they gonna
still need
go
to.
that hard? Because I remember, like remember the discourse around the Last of Us finale.
Yeah,
Everyone freaking out, like saying, like, "Was Joel a monster? Did he do that kind of thing?" I'm wondering if we're gonna see if Marlene's actually dead, or if she's gonna be a part of season 2/3 with where they
possible.
go.
Well, I think the big thing now is that they've announced they are going to do a season 2, obviously, like you
And
said.
Craig said
But
it's too
that
much season for one season.
well,
It's too
yes,
much
but
for one. So he's
but
like,
he also said, yeah, he did state that Last of Us 2 would be the central focus of season 2. He did not like, I mean, obviously they have to fit that in. Like I think we've talked about, like, obviously in the game there's a pivotal, like, halfway point of the game, right? Like, there's a pivotal point in the first act of Last of Us 2, but then there's kind of a change in scenery in the first,
yeah.
half. So maybe you do season 2 the first half and have that major moment of the first act of season 2 or Last of Us 2 be kind of like the cliffhanger, and then, like, how do you stylize that? But you can split up Last of Us 2 into 2 seasons. You
Oh, for
can.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes casual fans will be upset if what happens, like, if they keep it true to the game for season 2, for Last of Us 2,
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's
for
gonna
season 2.
piss people off.
That's gonna piss people off very
Goes to the
much
finale
so.
of season 1. That's gonna piss some people off.
Oh my god. Remember, HBO likes to do that because, Sean Bean,
Remember, it's
Game
yeah,
of
it's
Thrones,
gonna be on that level, but like
people
mad.
people weren't expecting it to be at the end of the season like that. People thought we were gonna get Ned Stark a lot longer than just one season. So HBO is not afraid to do that for the story, the sake of the story, but I don't see that happening. Maybe Marlene becomes the one, at the end of this season.
Yeah, or does she just become
Or
like permanently injured or something, and she's just kind of off in the background?
but they can also completely go different and
Have
Tommy
her,
become
yeah,
no, I'm talking about maybe Tommy be the one at the end of this season to where the story changes up next season.
yeah,
It could be there's a lot of things here, like, it's I think over the next 2 episodes we're gonna see how they may deviate quite a bit from the game. You know, they're gonna have to, especially when we introduce Tommy. Like, are we going? Well, let me correct myself. Either we're going to go one for one with the game, or we're gonna deviate with Tommy because, like you said, we got to know what happened with the Fireflies, why they were both a part of it, and then they're both out. Like, something had to have happened, right, for them. And yeah, man, it's just I'm very interested in this, and I think one thing you pointed about with this show that I like more than, like, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was all about gratuitous zombie killing for a big chunk of the show, right? You don't have to have this here, but you
and
have
there's
to
nobody
have if you're
wielding katanas to like kill zombies and
exactly.
shit.
But if you're going to do that, you have to have a hell of a cast, like actors that can just really hit the mark every time. And you got obviously we've had some great. I mean, we have great cast now, and we're gonna have people making cameos over the next couple seasons. But I think you're gonna be in a good place. I really do. I really do. I really have enjoyed it so far. I know some people think, "Oh, I'm not a fan. It's too slow." And my thought is like, well, yeah, not everything's going to be the one. Oh, it's just The Walking Dead, but slower. I'm like, that's not a bad thing because The Walking Dead for me was good until the fucking farm in season 2. Then after that, it went to shit.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, when it was the original Frank Darabont, like what they were
yep,
going that time, the one they were going for was fucking dope.
yep. It
Season
was
one
good.
ruled.
Oh, it was
That was
fantastic.
awesome. Like the arc with the CDC and everything. God, that was
Yep.
cool. And then it just, oh, we're going to a left turn. Oh, okay,
And we're
cool.
just gonna sit here on the farm for episode after episode after episode. You're just like,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
a show that got as big as it was in terms of cast, like and different relationships and all that stuff. Man, it was a weird incongruence in terms of the world they built and the characters in it. I
yep.
don't know. Like it's one of those, damn, that works really good in a comic book. You really needed to change more things though to make it
Yeah.
work in real world. Whereas Last of Us is extremely like, yeah, you make change a couple things in our world and shit that could happen. You know, like it's not that removed, right? So I can't remember what point I was trying to shift to there. I had a point. Believe me, audience, I had a point. But oh yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of cast, shout out to Murray Bartlett. I didn't realize that guy was. I think he's Australian.
Yes, he is.
Damn, his
Yeah.
accent was great.
Yeah.
I was like, I would have never clocked that. Whereas like sometimes you can clock a British guy or somebody doing an American, like how they say certain things, or like you don't sound like how they say their A's and R's, right? Like Bella Ramsey's has showed up a couple times.
Yeah. The first episode, not so much. I didn't really notice any type of like cracking in episode 2. This episode, there were 2 occasions where I noticed she cracked a little bit. You could
Which is
hear it.
totally fine. Like I'm not saying like oh it
Yeah,
breaks
yeah,
immersion or it's a terrible episode. For me, it's a solid 10 out of 10 episode. Like
yeah.
no question. But it's just one of those things I noticed. Of like I had absolutely no idea that dude was putting on an accent,
Okay,
covering an accent
so
until the
he
after
was
episode.
he was he won an Emmy for the first season of White Lotus, right? He
I haven't
was I don't
watched
know,
that.
it's it's an interesting show. It's not fast paced. It's more of like a Mad Men of hotels, kind of like it's a good story. There's drama, but there's not a whole lot. It's not over the top. But he won an Emmy for season 1. He was the
Oh,
he was the White
he
Lotus
was in
manager in season 1.
Farscape.
Yep. Yep, he was. But he was phenomenal in season 1 of White Lotus as well. He was the hotel manager in season 1. And yeah, he just
He was in Iron Fist.
yep, he was.
Yeah, I never actually watched Iron Fist.
Okay.
I knew it'd be shit, so I never watched it. I just
First season of that show was
Finn
really,
Jones,
really
like
bad.
God, and
No, just
everything about that show screamed red flashing neon signs. Yikes!
okay.
Like wow.
Here's a quick rant about that. First season, Finn Jones would have been okay
Well,
because
they
he
only
was
gave him
fine.
like 2 weeks to learn how to do martial arts. Are
Not
you
only that,
kidding me?
but he was fine in the Defenders, like much better written, and he was but much better acting in the
And the
Defenders
one episode of Luke Cage.
and Luke Cage and season 2 of Iron Fist. He's better. Season 1, horrible story. Like the story was awful. Horrible supporting cast outside of
Colleen
outside
Wing.
of what yeah, a Colleen Wing. Just everything about it was just really bad. Like so many elements, and so like the show, like Finn Jones could have gotten by had it been like better supporting cast, a little bit much better writing, a better story, better direction. Like it
I don't
was
remember
awful. They're just
who played her. What was her name?
uh, Jennifer Sedwick.
No, she was just in Glass Onion too.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Uh,
Actress. Just type in actress.
she's also in the
Jessica
Matrix
Henwick.
Resurrection. Jessica Henwick, yeah. Another British actress,
Knew
right?
the
Yeah,
name
British.
because she was in a few other things the
Game of
recent years.
Thrones, Matrix
Yep,
Resurrection,
she was essentially the one of the leads in that movie.
one of the Snake Girls, the Snake
Yep,
Sisters,
she was one of the Sand Sisters. Yeah,
Sand Sisters. Um, look, but yeah, he was
random tangents
incredible.
are our thing, people.
Yeah, we do this. But anyway, circle back to Last of Us. Like, this is an incredible cast, man. Just, I mean,
Yeah, they're
we,
bringing
we
in like A level shit even on their side stories.
yeah.
Like, damn, this show's gonna clean up at awards, and it deserves it because man, this is great stuff. Can't wait for what they got coming down the road. Up next, looks like they're heading to I think it's Baltimore.
Yeah, I think so.
'Cause I think it's got to be because that's where Frank was coming from, and he's saying
So
like it's gone, like the city's totally fallen. There's no QZ, there's no military. It's a city of
so
raiders.
the QZ was in Boston. They went 5 hours west, obviously, because they're heading to Wyoming. So it was a 5 hour walk. So it wasn't that far outside of Boston then.
No, I'm thinking,
I think I'm gonna have me pull up a map.
yeah,
Gonna have me pull up a map. Let's just say maybe like Farmingham or somewhere out there. They say
let me
five
zoom out on my
hours.
map.
Marlboro, Massachusetts. I don't know. Like
Where are they coming from again?
they're coming from Boston. So if they're in Boston and they head about
Maybe
5
Hartford
hours,
or
maybe Hartford.
Providence. Maybe
Well, it's
Worcester.
no, it's a 5-hour walk, so maybe they're like Foxborough area kind of. But it's obviously out of the way of anything. It's obviously a suburban area because Joel tells them in the flashback, like, they're not gonna come for you. Like this place, they're done here. You know?
Oh, I'm wondering maybe depends on what route they would have taken because obviously they're doing highways.
Yep.
So I'm like, are they going south to go across? 'Cause if they go south to go across, they could skirt around New York and then do like Philly or Baltimore or Pittsburgh, one of those cities.
Possible they end up like in Pennsylvania next.
I don't think they're gonna all of a sudden be in Chicago already because that's a main part of the story, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And
I
I don't
don't think they're
I,
gonna be in Chicago yet.
maybe it makes sense that's maybe where they run into Tommy, kind of
That's where
a
that
big
story
city.
starts to pick up.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's where they meet him, like in that maybe kind of at the Lake Michigan area. That's
that's a
where they.
long way from Wyoming, though.
Yeah, it's still a long way. I don't know, man. It's just it's gonna be fun because we're 3 episodes in. We've got 6 left, and it's moving at a good pace. The story's moving at a good pace. The acting and there is a balance of action, drama, and storytelling, like a good balance of them. And like you said, I have no doubt that they're going to win like be nominated for a shit ton of awards because this is the showrunners were from the mini series, the Chernobyl series,
Hmm.
which was an incredible series, by the way.
Yeah,
So I know that they were probably approached, and HBO was like, "We're gonna do a fucking video game, really?" And they were like, "No, like this is a really good story for a video game, so let's make it into a good show." Okay, well, we don't want like superheroes. Like, no, it's not a fucking video game like you think it is. It's a drama. Like it's a horrible, horrible drama, but it's a drama nonetheless.
yeah, it
But
is a gut wrenching one.
yeah, yeah,
Knowing where they're going in the finale.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's gonna be brutal to watch. Damn.
yep, yep. So yeah, I'm all for it, man. This is great. This is great. And like you said, the music's ending that first one with Depeche Mode. I'm taking a ride with my best friend. The chorus of that Depeche Mode song is like, okay, like they're going somewhere with this long, long time. If you go read the lyrics a long, long time, you're like, man, this is wow. They essentially just took the song and turned it into an episode. Like we really like okay. So these guys have really put the effort in the writing.
Mhm.
They really have. And so yeah, man. Pedro Pascal is gonna have a really good year. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, dude, Mando's coming up. I saw the new trailer for that dropped today, or the TV spot version. That's gonna be so much fun. Ah, right around the corner. Oh, did you see? I'm doing a Mandalorian burning, and if anybody who watches this, I do wood burnings. Where'd it go?
Uh-oh.
I'm starting on this one. So I mean, you can see the baby Yoda in it already with Grogu.
Okay.
God, it's gonna look so good. I can't wait. That one I'm giving away for charity. I'm toying with just putting it on the wall behind me though. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, we've been going and recording, probably talking for about 30 minutes. Do you want to talk any more about The Last of Us?
Just one cool thing, a real quick aside. So we're gonna have a bit of a tiny crossover of the Mando and Last of Us. The finale of Last of Us is March 12th, and Mando starts up what, March 1st? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be Pedro Pascal's week.
It's gonna yep, no, it's like a 2-week period of just Pedro Pascal everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, for very different reasons.
Yep. So anyway, really enjoying this show, man. And I know some people were like, "Oh, great, another Walking Dead." No, and it's funny. What cracks me up is that there are people out there that really liked the game, and they're like, "Ah, I'm told it's more like the Walking Dead." I'm like, "No, this is not the
Well, yeah,
Walking
it's
Dead."
because it's a TV show. Like
Yeah,
in games, as they've said this multiple times, in a game, you are locked into the character's perspective that you are playing.
yep,
Especially with how that was set up. They weren't doing, hey, we're going to give you a scene from another character like TV shows do, right?
sure,
Like
sure,
there was a lead, and that was it. Like look at God of War. It's one perspective the entire time. You don't get scenes from other people's perspectives shift away to what's going on in the other part of the world beyond
Yeah.
the split with Atreus and everything in Ragnarok. Like it's a TV show. It's just constructed differently in terms of storytelling, narrative, pacing, the whole nine yards. There's no gameplay to
And
focus around.
it makes the it's it makes the humanity side of the story itself more poignant. That hey, like this is what you have to go through to survive. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of elements you don't think about because you're playing the game, you're mashing buttons, you're trying to win a game versus like a TV show or a movie or even a book to a degree, like really pulls in the emotion from you, right? And it helps and it resonates a lot deeper than the game might have. And that's and I'm saying that because The Last of Us resonated emotionally with so many of us, right? It slaps differently when you're watching people tell that story like live action. It does. Yeah, and that's why it's so hard for video game stories to make it on the small screen and big screen, you know?
yeah,
I think this is the first one and it won't be the last because I'm sure studios are now like, what's a good story, guys? Give me a video game that we can sell. Give me a video game that we can sell, you know? Like this might be a bit of interesting trend, but there aren't so many stories out there that can be translated into live action as well as like this one can. When you
yeah. In
really think
terms
about
of
it,
for budget,
yeah,
for scale,
yeah,
for what they
yeah,
want to do, right?
yeah.
Like, I
Everything
think
requires a lot of CGI, a lot of set design, a lot of action pieces. Like a lot of them do require that. Whereas this didn't. And it's funny. It reminds me of what Pedro Pascal said before before the season one, the first episode premiered. Was he said there's a difference here because I'm playing an older man. I'm playing a man in his 50s, right? Or his 50s. In the game, yeah, he can crouch a lot. Reality, a man in his 50s cannot crouch a lot.
no,
So I won't be crouching a lot in this TV show, thankfully. And there's a reason why, because physically it's not realistically it's not possible. So like there's all those elements of like, hey, that really can't be done versus, hey, we can do this. And like I said, the main thing that drives this are the talents of the cast. Really, it's of course the direction and the writing and all that, but really like to get you past the moments of like everything being just a shoot 'em up zombie horde action sequence. You have to have the character like the actors really push the story forward. And in this one, Bartlett and Offerman fucking nailed it, man. Like they really pushed it forward. And then after all that, you get the sad goodbye, and then boom, we get hey, here's Ellie, and here they are. Let's do this, And it's like okay, all right, you said your goodbyes. Like I didn't get as emotional as you, but at the same time, it was like, man, I got only one episode with these two guys, but I felt like I got attached to them so
yeah,
fast.
that was that was very well done.
Yeah,
Um, Trying to think in terms of game, like one that just got a remake. It just dropped this week, and Carpenter said he wants to do it. I can't believe a studio hasn't said, "Hey, John Carpenter, you want to do Dead Space? Let's
oh
go!"
man, Ooh.
Like of all the things that you could do, you of all the directors who want to do something with video games, John Carpenter says he wants to do a Dead Space movie.
If it's
The
the like
what?
the
No one's jumped on this.
if it's the thing style of Dead Space, oh my god, fuck yeah,
Yeah, like
oh
imagine him like it's not going to be super like all out because some of the game's extremely gory when fighting the necromorphs. But I mean, imagine that what Carpenter could do with that because he's thought about it
oh yeah.
because he's like on record. I love this game. This game rules. You give that kind of creative genius the reins of an awesome IP like that, and just let him run for 2 hours plus its sequels and what he could do with the narrative of that. Whew. Wow, that'd be something to watch.
Here talking about this makes me really sad we never got a really good adaptation of Silent Hill because that's a game that's a story that could be just like just terrifying if it was done right, but no one ever could really nail that.
This is one of those I wonder could they make it a miniseries or something?
HBO could do it, you know?
I wonder if they start looking at for as a they start looking at that era like of games as like a well of like, well, what can we do with it? Like it doesn't
Oh,
have to be a massive IP that turns into like six series, and
yeah.
6 seasons of a show.
Yeah.
What can you do as a one off? You know?
I got one that needs to be in the pipeline and it needs to be through HBO. Heavy Rain.
Wait, is that Alan Wake?
No, Heavy Rain was the Origami Killer.
Oh yeah, that one. Yep.
That one could be a killer HBO
I was gonna
series.
say that, or who? What is the
I
name
can
of?
see
What is
I
the
can
name of
see
the
Alan Wake
Alan
being a
Wake
different.
/ Control?
Yeah,
Like I could see Control as a series.
I could see doing an Alan Wake show on like Netflix. I think that would really work on Netflix.
Yeah.
But I think like Heavy Rain, there's a lot more psychological aspect of Heavy Rain. I could see HBO jumping onto something like that if it had the right writers. You know,
Hmm.
you have to really, because there's so much of the game that just you really can't. It's not going to translate well to into a show. But you could take the bones of it and really create kind of a deep thriller. And shit, man, cast Maya Goth in it just because she's on a roll right now with horror movies. You know, I
Yeah,
could
I
see
think
her being
the horror genre lends itself really well to adaptation
yeah,
because it's like the stakes are different, like in terms of what they could do. Like there's no, hey, we need to save the planet from whatever. Like, it's not Gears
yeah,
of War where they're trying to fight fucking like lambent creatures all the time.
yeah.
Um, Also, what's up, Rhoda? Thanks for popping in.
Hey,
You've missed
brother.
the bulk of the conversation, but we'll have the VOD and the YouTube up as well. Plus, audio version will be out shortly as well.
Yep.
And that's a good plug to say, hey, if you're watching this or listening, subscribe to the feed or the YouTube channel or here on Twitch, even if it's just a follow. You don't have to sub on Twitch. That's cool. If you do, that's awesome. But you don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we were just talking about games we would like to see adapted. Like I told our last episode, I'd love an actually good Halo show, like a Contact Harvest or something, like a First Contact with the Reach kind of show. Or maybe you said it about the Spartan ones, where it's like the beginning of the Super Soldier program, and then the cliffhanger of episode 1 is a time jump of 50 years and the birth of a Spartan 2s, something like that. I think that'd be an interesting show. The Fall of Reach would be a good one, and they didn't do it,
Yes. Yep.
that kind of thing. But I think the world of Mass Effect, maybe not the Shepard story, but the world of Mass Effect, like First Contact with the Turians, would be really cool to see. God, that'd be fun.
I
I'd
think
get a
we're gonna
huge kick
get.
out of that.
I think we're probably gonna get that with Amazon. They'll do the Shepard story like as the main story of Mass Effect on Amazon, but you could do miniseries to talk about
Yeah.
different side stories within the Mass Effect universe. So yeah. But man, I really think I'm thinking about it. Like the more I think about it, I think Heavy Rain would be a really good one for HBO to do, like to look into because it's a it was it was a really game changing game, pun intended,
Could
on the
see
PS3.
developer.
Okay, that's another
No,
good
not
one.
developer. The guy that did what is the name of this guy? Detroit Become Human.
Oh man,
His kind of games would work really well in shows.
that's a very Westworld one right there.
Yeah. But like a lot of
Oh,
his games and themes I think would translate to an adaptation to live action. Because he's telling that David Cage, I think
David
is
Cage. David
David
Cage,
Cage,
yeah.
that's the name.
Yeah.
I think his games would work adapted into a television format.
Okay, so to correct myself because I totally broke my chain of thought there. He wrote and directed Heavy Rain.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
thought that was him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was him. Yeah. Yeah. But
So
man, like there's several of them there beyond Two Souls. I mean, I'm looking at his list of games that he wrote, and yeah, the Dark Sorcerer, Kara, yeah, like there's a collection of games that you could jump into
yeah.
from him. Maybe even
Obviously there's
having taken.
issues around David Cage as a person. I don't think he's gonna be as
Yes.
involved as Neil Druckmann would be in any adaptation. And I wouldn't
No.
want him to be.
No.
But the actual IP, there's something there.
Yeah.
Beyond if whether or not he needs to be attached to it. And hello there, listeners. I just wanted to cut this in here to let you know that we're done talking about The Last of Us here. We move on to some other topics like what's going on with Zachary Levi and the Shazam 2 situation. We get into some political talk. So, like, our information may be a little out of date with that situation by the time this episode is to be published. So, keep that in mind. We talk about some other stuff like some Blue Beetle, some DC news, things like that. So, but we are done talking about The Last of Us if that's what you were watching the podcast for. Appreciate you checking out. If that's all it was, maybe drop that follow Subscribe if that's what's going on. Okay. So, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap
No,
up here?
man.
Other than I just
Let's
want to say, man, what a fucking bummer it was about Zachary Levi this last 24 hours. Like, on the one hand, I'm sure part of the spin is going to be that he was just ranting about Pfizer because his dad died.
yeah.
'Cause I believe his dad passed away overnight. But man, I did not know he was that kind of just like not right wing because I don't care about conservative politics, but in terms of just out there stuff he's been spouting.
Okay, so with the anti-vax stuff, like I'm still kind of like I'm not like what's the right word for this? I just don't. I'm not like too combative about that whole thing. Just the anti-vax approach. The thing is that he pretty much just gave his thumbs up for Jordan Peterson, and that's a problem. That's a big problem I have. That's a big
Yeah,
problem
that
I have.
dude is bad news.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean,
I mean,
you and I had our private messages. And I'm like, the guy went on a fucking crash. He put his daughter and himself on a crash diet and got hooked on benzos because of it. So like, and then he goes out there and still fat shames people. Like afterwards, it's like he's just not a good person, man. And so for him to
yeah.
kind of give thumbs up to Jordan Peterson, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure we're probably going to get a statement from him, but I don't know, man. I think it pissed off a lot of people just because DC's had a really bad run right now.
I know. I
With
think they're all of a sudden
Ezra
going,
Miller
"Oh,
and
good. We don't have to do anything more with this version of Shazam. We're good."
yep.
That problem is solved in the dumbest way possible.
You think it still makes a shit ton of money though?
I think it's gonna. It's so close to release. I don't think it's gonna impact it that much.
Nah.
But and it's not exactly like he's a household name. You know what I mean? Like the
People,
movie did fairly well, but he's
yeah.
not The Rock.
Well,
You know.
people still went to go watch Wakanda Forever, even
I
though
mean, the biggest name on the
Patricia did.
billing's Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
So it's not
No,
a
don't scoff at Lucy
no.
Liu. What are you talking about, man?
I mean Helen. I think Helen Mirren's in terms of names people know.
I know.
Whether or not
Yeah.
there's the draw of like what brings you to a movie, that's a different conversation. But
Yeah.
those two, I think the villains are the big draw of this one, in terms of the cast at least. So, but man, it was just a bummer. It's like, man, I really love Chuck as a show,
Yeah.
and I know Adam Baldwin is already. He's. I did not think Levi was on the same train as Adam Baldwin, but I guess he is. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked.
Adam Baldwin was kind of an interesting one though.
Do you remember when he had his meltdown like
Yeah.
10 years ago now?
Yeah.
And there's a reason you haven't seen him in anything since
Yeah.
Chuck ended, basically. Because it wasn't that long after the finale that I think it was at a con or something where he just like kind of went
Yep.
off on this really kind of like alt right rant about things, and it was like, good lord, dude, you're crazy.
Like for me, I think politically, like it's the thing where I get it. People have views that kind of go to one side or the other, and I understand that, and I'm not critical like of that necessarily. But when you start going into this level of like hate rhetoric, like you follow into a path where it's directly tied into hate rhetoric, that's a bit of a problem for me.
Yeah,
That's where I'm like, okay, when you are directly tied into thoughts and conspiracies that are tied into neo-Nazi groups, hate groups, things like that, like directly tied into them and supported and thumbs up, hey, taking photos with that. That's when I have a problem with it. Like, okay, maybe Zach just had a really bad fucking day. I know we don't talk about this normally, and that's fine. But like the one I'm kind of like I get now is Chris Pratt, because remember when people learned that he was a conservative Christian, people a couple years ago, people lost their shit. If you remember, they were like trying to go after him, and all of the remaining cast were like, no, like he's a good guy. He's not overbearing. He's not hateful. He's not judgmental. He has his beliefs, but he's like, leave me and my beliefs alone, and I'll let like everyone else go live their lives how they see fit to. Right? And that's if you notice, like even like Dave Bautista, like his mother is a lesbian, and so he has a very progressive mindset and a very like he supports the LGBTQ community, but like people were like, hey man, do you have a problem with Chris Pratt? And he's like, no, I love the guy. Me and him get along great. Like He's not a hateful guy. It's a little different than stuff like I'm supporting Jordan Peterson. Thumbs up, like,
Yeah,
and you
that's
know
a
what,
far
man?
different world. Again, like
You
I
know
was
what?
saying, like we don't talk politics that much, but like like I don't have a problem with anybody that is conservative. My dad's a hardcore Republican. I have some of the things he decides to turn a blind eye to. I have an issue with, but that's a personal thing. But it's like I don't have a problem with anybody who's a Christian. Like I grew up Lutheran and everything, but like yeah, like you said, when you're tying it into hate speech, when you're demonizing, specific groups or things like that, and then they're going to turn around and say, "Oh, well, you're demonizing us." Like it's different when it's a reaction to you doing it first, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
there's yeah, you're going on the defensive versus a mindset that is I'm trying to be offensive and proactive with my hate. It's like
yeah, and that's what their hate
that's
all too often
yeah,
turns into is just
yeah,
they're just they just hate. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, we
And
don't
it's
have to tolerate that shit.
like I said, whatever Zach Levi believes, like, okay, but like when you said, oh man, he's anti-vax, I'm like, yeah, that kind of sucks, but okay, whatever. But then when you're like, and he's supporting Jordan Peterson, I go and I watch the video, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
dude,
and how
like,
he like
oh,
talks about him in such glowing
oh.
terms.
And Joe Rogan, I'm gonna be honest with you,
How long ago was that episode from?
not that long ago, not that long ago,
Yeah.
like months or a year ago, but like all I know is that Joe Rogan knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing because he knew whether it be instant or
He's
at
a
some
weird one to
point,
figure out, Rogan.
he's a fucking troll,
No,
man.
that's what I mean. Like in terms of like he really is. I mean, obviously he's doing it for views. So like it's not
Yeah,
exactly a shock that he's going for the hey, this is what's gonna set people off question. One way
yeah,
or the other.
yeah.
He doesn't care which way the needle falls as long as it sets people off.
Well, and as long as it makes him money,
And
that's
that's
really
because
the
that's
end
what
of
makes
it.
him money.
That's really like with a person like Rush Limbaugh, like they could, oh, he was an uber conservative. I'll be honest with you, from working in the media circles, wasn't as conservative as people make him out to be, like as he made himself out to be. Dude just wanted to make fucking money, and that was a space for him to keep making a shit ton of
Yeah,
money,
he
and that's
wasn't
yeah,
he was more craven about it in terms of like using
yeah.
it as an advantage. Whereas like I actually think Tucker Carlson believes that shit he spews.
Oh no, 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 like
Like
that guy has got a
he's
problem,
he's off the deep end. You know what I
and
mean?
he's gonna lose his shit with the naked M and M's, but
I
whatever, man.
what a crazy. I knew it was probably bullshit because I mean Super Bowl's right around the corner.
Yeah.
But I mean M&M's, what the fuck you doing? What the fuck you doing? Like
Can
why?
we can we
For
just
for a
enjoy?
30-second ad that costs you millions of dollars, this is this PR cycle is what you wanted to sign up for?
Let's
Are
just
you
enjoy the
crazy?
fucking candy, man. Come on. Like
It's candy.
everything has to be weaponized. Even our superheroes. Like we have to like this we're in a very weaponizing society and we gotta chill out with that. We really need to like
I can't believe it. They signed off on that campaign.
I
Like,
know.
think about the decision making that would have had to go into signing off of that marketing and PR campaign. And that Rudolph was fine with it. Obviously, she's getting paid, so like it's not really on
I
her,
mean,
but it's like nobody was like, "Hey, let's take a step back and think about this word that starts with an O and ends in a patix." Like nobody thought about that. What? And Rhoda, you don't know what we're talking about in chat. So M&M's had this whole debacle last year because they changed the look of I think it was specifically the green and brown
the
M&M,
green, yep. Yep.
where they decided, hey, they're not going to wear basically stripper boots anymore,
They're gonna wear sneakers.
right? We're not going to overtly sexualize our candy. Conservatives had a fucking field day. Like they went ham for no fucking reason on,
Primarily Tucker Carlson. Like this became a
and of course
campaign
it's
of his.
Tucker Carlson. The guy's an
Yeah.
asshole and a moron.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, the logic with more holes than Swiss cheese. But they went off about being, M&M's is woke and all this shit. And then now a few months later, M&M's has been like, we understand, we didn't think we'd have this much outcry. So here's our new spokesperson, Maya Rudolph. And they were going to like retire the candies and all that. Like, but now, hey, it's all a Super Bowl prank. So now the conservatives are freaking out about it. Liberals are freaking out about it. And nobody's saying good things. Like, they're trying, I'm sure they were like, oh, all press is good press kind of thing. It's not. You don't have to do this. This is pointless and stupid. Like your
Here's the
M&Ms,
thing.
you're the market leader and that kind of thing. You don't need this.
Not this isn't a take on either side of the aisle. This is a take on somebody that eats way too much fucking candy. Here's the thing that's going to happen. Like right now, they're like you said, people on both sides, they're flipping the fuck out, but quietly both sides are buying a shit ton of candy, right? But at some point, people are just going to get exhausted, and that's it. That's really it, and they're going to get tired, and then their sales are going to slump. They're going to have to think of a different ad campaign. Whatever, you know. Look, man, I know we opened this whole can of worms with the Zachary Levi thing, but like, look, I mean, we were a part of the Rooster Teeth community, and he was a big Rooster Teeth fan, and I thought he was a good guy, and I'm not saying he's an awful human being. I just think like this was a really poor time for him to just post that tweet right now, right in the middle of things. And I'm sure his PR people and I'm sure Warner Brothers PR people are like, God damn it! Like, they saw what happened with
Gina Carano.
Gina Carano, and they're like, really, we have to like not only that, but they're dealing with Ezra Miller, who's a total fucking disaster. Amber Heard over with Aquaman because people were still protesting the release of that film because they did not remove her. They cut her out of the film for a big chunk of it, but she's still a part of the film and she's getting a top billing. So like I think just DC at this point, maybe even James Gunn's like, you know what? I really wish there was an actual physical nuke button, like nuke it from orbit because I want to do that right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason why apparently in 2 days he's going to announce the slate of new movies because he's probably going to be like, I just want to move on from this. Let Blue Beetle be the start of the new DCU.
How crazy is that? Would you have ever pegged that would be something that hangs on? A Jaime
Now,
Reyes
man,
Blue Beetle movie? Crazy.
man, a movie that was filmed 2 years ago that they thought was in the
Yeah, I thought it
like
was basically going to be a streaming exclusive.
streaming exclusive. Now it's going to be probably be the linchpin of the new DC universe.
Yep.
I'm sure they did some reshoots that can kind of stylize the new DC EU out of it.
Yep.
So man, it's been an interesting hour talking about this shit, but it's just the craziness back and forth, man. And just of
True.
what can happen in the news, but like on top of all that, you and I at the end of the day, whatever political chats we sidebar, we always manage to say, hey, the content, we can separate the two because good content is still good content because there's many layers of like Hollywood and that are just horrible itself as well that you could
Yeah.
really say, okay, I can't watch this because of this and the X, Y, and Z because of this production.
And we
And
should all hate Mission Impossible because
yeah,
of all that,
exactly,
right? But
exactly.
we should probably start wrapping up because it is a little
Let's
over an
do it.
hour we've been recording. I'm also going to
Yeah,
record a little thing there to put in hey, we're done talking about The Last of Us. Here's all the things we move on to later. And just
yeah,
put that right there. So anybody listening, if they want to check out, they can. Because we started right away.
yeah.
But speaking of looking ahead, what we're going to do next, we got two things that are on the docket for episode 60. I'm going to go watch Knock at the Cabin, which is the M. Night Shyamalan, Dave Bautista movie coming out this Thursday.
Yep.
I'm probably going to go see that with Joey. He may join us for the show, not sure. And what was you said you were going to go see Infinity Pool?
Brandon Cronenberg, son of David Cronenberg, legendary weirdo director, and gonna go see Infinity Pool with Maya Goth,
All
who is
right.
the new independent scream queen,
And it's
man.
got one of the Scars guards, right?
Yeah, not
Alex, I
Stellan.
think. Or
No, I think
Stellan's the old one,
it's
isn't he?
Stellan. Yeah. Now, who's it? Who
Alexander.
played Alexander Skarsgård? Yes,
Yeah.
Pennywise. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in that.
Yep.
So that's where probably we're going to wrap it for episode 59. Episode 60 will be most likely next weekend / maybe early part of next week. Depends
Maybe. No.
on how things go. I have a procedure tomorrow at the Mayo Clinic. So I'm hoping I will get a surgery date, and that may put a hold on content into March. We'll see how things go. Stay tuned, of
Yeah.
course, to our individual Twitters. We banter about these kind of things. Like we had a little conversation today about some football stuff. And in
Oh
our
yeah.
pre-show, we talked a lot of football too. So, all right, well, let's get out of here. Chat, thanks for hanging. We'll see you next time. I'll be back probably tomorrow night. I don't know if it'll be in Discord for a movie night or on Twitch for a Hi-Fi Rush, starting that. Because that game looks so much fun. I do still want to watch The Menu. And Tuesday, all of a sudden, Iowa picked up a postponed basketball game. So I'm watching that. So we might watch The Menu tomorrow in Discord. Stay tuned. See ya.